All right, welcome back, friends. For today and the next few episodes, Mike and I have the distinct privilege of studying, some scholars could argue, the most important chapter in the Old Testament. Again, scholars could argue the most important prophet in the Old Testament. And whether he is number one or it's in a small constellation of others that biblical scholars might put forth before us, um, it is without a doubt a pivotal chapter. And so let's just get to it. Um, so the title of these episodes is going to be The Call, the Pedagogy of God. And God teaches us, his people, in very predictable, observable ways. And so to really become familiar with that process of teaching, we have to look at the historical setting of Isaiah. So let us segue into the historical setting. So in previous Miracle Micah episodes, especially Isaiah chapter 1, Covenant Curses, episodes 1 and 2, we explored how Isaiah stands at the crossroads of divine judgment and mercy. Speaking during a time of political instability and spiritual decay, Isaiah addressed both his contemporaries in the kingdom of Judah and future generations, and this is us, who would endure exile and long for restoration. So, yes, he's talking about his people then. He's talking about when they come back from exile, when they are in exile, Babylonian exile, come back. And the broader picture is us, generation, Jesus Christ, and then to us. These discussions highlighted Isaiah's elevated literary style, his prophetic insight into world empires like Assyria and Babylon, and his central role in salvation history, comparable in scope to Paul in the New Testament. And that is right. Scholars like to uh, compare and contrast between Paul for the New Testament and Isaiah for the Old. We also reflected on Isaiah's unique position in biblical tradition, a prophet whose oracles are not confined to chronological order, but were shaped and collected over time to deliver God's message across the generations. So if we remember, the call, if we were looking chronologically, should come in chapter 1, but we didn't have that. The call, his beginning of his ministry, is actually coming here in chapter 6. This period of political and spiritual turmoil was deeply embedded in the broader arc of salvation history. Isaiah prophesied into the southern kingdom of Judah during the latter half of the 8th century BC, a time marked by the rise of the Assyrian Empire and the destruction of the northern kingdom of Israel in 722 BC. His ministry spanned the reigns of 4 kings, Uzziah, Jotham, Ahaz, and Hezekiah, offering words of warning, judgment, and consolation to a people facing both political upheaval and spiritual decline. While Isaiah's immediate context was the Assyrian threat, his prophetic vision extended far beyond, anticipating the Babylonian exile of Judah, which would not occur until 586 BC under Nebuchadnezzar, who destroyed Jerusalem after a prolonged siege. And I have the scriptures there listed for those interested. This political crisis was deeply embedded in the broader arc of salvation history. The united monarchy under David had once ruled all 12 tribes of Israel, and God made an eternal covenant with David, promising that his descendants would remain on the throne. After Solomon's apostasy and death, his kingdom split into Israel in the north and Judah in the south. The Davidic promise continued through Judah, while the northern kingdom fell increasingly into idolatry and political instability. Nevertheless, both kingdoms were called to covenant faithfulness, and the prophets, including Isaiah, served as God's messengers, warning of judgment, but also offering hope. Isaiah uniquely balances these themes, prophesying not only the fall of nations, but also the emergence of a righteous king from David's line, a message that would later be understood as referring to Christ. Importantly, the prophetic literature should not be read as a linear narrative. Like the Gospels, the prophetic book of Isaiah was formed by the later collection and arrangement of oracles, sermons, and symbolic acts originally spoken aloud by the prophet in various contexts. Isaiah's writings, composed in Hebraic verse and often compared in artistry to Shakespeare, reflect a pedagogical intent. God shaping his people through both word and historical events. As biblical historians note, such accounts must be appreciated first as narratives before they can be utilized as historical sources. Isaiah's prophetic work is thus not only rooted in its own historical moment, but also divinely designed to interpret and guide the unfolding of redemptive history. And one of the books I will waive is A Biblical History of Israel, Ian Provan, V. Phillips Long, and Tremper Longman III, WJK Publishing. But I'll waive more as we go through.
Yeah, I love how you've put all this together, Karen. And I think it's so helpful to get this understanding of the actual, yeah, the fact that it's more than just these stories or poems that we read, but there's an actual thread that ties it through all the way just to salvation history and the story of Jesus. And so I think it's really beautiful. And yeah, I love that last line of how it's not only rooted in its historical moment, but also divinely designed to interpret and guide the unfolding of redemptive history. Because even just the themes of exile and being, you know, these situations that seem so hopeless, and through all of that, there's still this thread of hope that continues, and we see it come to fruition in Christ, which I just think it's beautiful.
It is beautiful. It is beautiful. His love for us and the way he goes about uh, saving us when we cooperate from time to time, because he doesn't ever impose. He's always a gentleman. He always proposes. He doesn't impose, um, but he proposes in such a beautiful and personal and individual way, right? And he'll do that with Isaiah, right? He'll speak to Isaiah, the man, with his own personal background in a way that he can understand. And it would be, of course, different for you, how he approaches you, and or he approaches me, or you, our friend who's listening. He's he saves us in the particular, as a dear friend like that I have likes to say. He doesn't just save us as a big glob of whoever. He saves us individually.
Yeah, it speaks to the creativity.
It does. It does. It speaks to his creativity and his in the high regard he has for each and every one of us. All right, let us pick up in the next episode with a brief biographical sketch of Isaiah. Till then, my friends, Fide Sirach.